Hello and welcome to the Greater Manchester Football Podcast. Within each episode of the podcast, we'll be talking to guests involved in football in our local Greater Manchester community across multiple different areas, including playing, coaching, refereeing, and volunteering. I'm your host, Matt Wood, and for our second podcast episode, I'm delighted to be joined by three brilliant guests from AFC Urmston Meadowside. AFC Urmston Meadowside are one of the largest football clubs with 81 teams from youth to adults, over 1,200 registered players and over 230 volunteers helping to run these teams. Off the pitch, they're a well-respected club due to the huge part they are serving in the community and continued dedication to developing young people and volunteers. As a result of their hard work, the last few months have perhaps been extra special for the club, in which they've received the highest honour of all that is given to volunteer groups as they appeared on the King's Award for Voluntary Service. To help us learn about their journey and the secrets to becoming a thriving community club, we are joined from AFC Urmston Meadowside's Vice Chairperson, Jimmy Khan, Club Secretary Matt Wall, and Compliance Manager Julie-Ann Graton. It's great to welcome you on. I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys. Starting with Jimmy, how are you?
Yeah, I'm really well, thank you very much. Yeah, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. I'm sure it's been a busy period over the last few months for you guys. How are you doing, Matt?
Yeah, all good. I'm probably glad to see the back of the busy time, to be honest, a little bit. But like I say, it never goes quiet in grassroots football, does it? So, yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
And finally, thank you for joining us. How are you keeping, Julianne?
Hi, Matt. Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. It's great to be here.
Great. So a question I guess have starting for all of you. It'd be great to hear more about your individual roles and what the club means to you. So we'll start with you, Jimmy, and then we'll go Matt and then Julie. That's good.
So, you said we might have been busy for the last few months, but in all honesty, we've been busy for the last few years. It's a massive undertaking, and it's testament to people like Matt and Julianne who are volunteers and have put their hand up to give more time to help develop and nurture young people, really, in the main. So my involvement with the club was about 14 years ago when my son joined. Um, and despite my son not being at the club since he was at the age of 10, we've carried on being involved because we've made new friends. And for me, my background is development work. That's what I do for a day job. Um, I was able to support the club in lots of different areas in terms of developing and nurturing talent across the club, putting things in place that needed to be there to make sure it was a safe, fun, organised environment. And that's where people like Matt and Julian have come in to help maintain those standards that we set ourselves. Um, it's not football's incidental. This is about the community, and it's about our place in the community and about giving something back. So as fortune would have it, my background's football. I'm an A licensed football coach. I've played football. Um, so this was a dream for us. And whilst it's on top of everything else that we do, it doesn't feel like work. It feels like we're doing something for the community. So I'll shut up there and I'll pass the baton.
That's great. So Matt, what does the club mean to you? And could you just give us a little bit more detail around your role at AFC Urmston Meds?
Yeah, of course, Matt. So, mine's similar to Jim in some ways, but I'm from being a player myself at Urmston Meadowside when I was young. So I started in the club at 5, through to 17. Then I had a bit of years where away from football, which was a shame really, because there was not much going at that point for that old age group and then around the time of the community. And then my little ones came along, and obviously always kept a keen, close eye to Meadowside because it's always been quite close to me. And then obviously my lad started playing. Initially, just came down as a parent, just sort of sit there and watch and take in that. Chairman at the time was my manager. Chairman, sorry, still now, and the chairman then was my manager back when I was then. Noticed me stood there and sort of said, "Come on, get involved." And started to meet Jim and a few others through football as well that were playing socially at the time, and it just made sense to get involved and give back to what I'd already received from the club from being a child, being honest. So I started off in kit manager role and doing a few bits like that, and then obviously naturally you progress and you start to do a few bits that you take on because you want to help out. Like Jimmy said, it's all community focused. So you start seeing the outcomes on people more than anything, especially sort of the younger generation that are playing, and when you start creating a better, more inclusive sort of environment for them to play in, you start to really think what I'm doing is great. So that was really pretty much what drove me in, and then still coaching, still playing or trying, and see, and working within the exec and the management committee now, which is just great fun, really, to be honest.
It's great, really nice to hear. And finally, what about yourself, Julie? What does the club mean to you, and kind of what's your involvement?
Yeah, sure. So I've been involved with the club for around 12 years. My son joined Meadowside when he was 5. So I had many years on the sideline as a parent and team admin and all of the stuff that goes with that. And we chose this club because of its reputation. And also, my son knew lots of other members. So it was great for him to play with his pals every week, as well as making new friends as well, which was great to see. Um, so my day job involves a lot of corporate governance and compliance. So when I saw the vacancy for this compliance role, I applied, got the job, and started just over 5 years ago. The club was really growing, and the exec committee recognised the need for more compliance, more governance, just more resource in that whole space, as well as the need for a more robust infrastructure to help the club evolve and move forward in the right way. So, my role is very much about the standard stuff, having the correct policies and procedures in place to ensure best practice, to protect the club and everyone associated with the club. I also led on the project to establish Medicide as a charity. We'll talk more about that in a bit. Um, and it's about reputation. It's so important to us. It's taken many years to build the strong reputation that we've got, and it's vital that we can demonstrate good governance, that we're open, transparent, accountable. Being a charity gives us that framework. So for me, I'm not, and I'm sure Matt and Jimmy will agree, I'm not so great at the actual football stuff, still don't know all of the rules. So it's great that I can contribute in the way that I do, because there really is a place for everybody here at the club. And no matter what your skills are, we will put you to work. And what we do is so important for our young people, for our local community. And I really love what we do here and what we represent. And I do feel proud of what's been achieved by the club in the years that I've been involved, but in the long term as well. Um, and it's the volunteers, it's the great community that you become part of, and it's just good to be involved in that whole scene, really.
That's great. So I think a lot of you have highlighted kind of on the growth. Obviously, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the development has been from one team in 1977, all them years ago, to 81 teams, I believe, today. Correct me if I'm wrong. Um, what has that journey been like? Obviously, yourself, Julie, your role has been created 5 years ago, as you mentioned. So this is all part of the growth and improving the structure at the club. So what has the journey been like? I appreciate it's a long period of time, but if you could just give me a brief overview of that journey and how you've become the club you have today as well.
So the journey's been a long one, and we've brought a lot of people along with us to support us to be able to do that. If I'm honest with you, the last 5 years, the club has really developed, and it coincided with Julie-Ann and with Matt coming on board to make sure that our standards were at the right level to ensure the safety of young people that were with us. And we've worked closely with the FA. So Manchester FA have been brilliant with us to help us to put those standards in place, but also support us. We've probably we're probably using every blade of grass and astro in Trafford and further afield just to facilitate all our teams. And we're desperate for new facilities, and that's our next adventure, because we're gonna look at new facilities for ourselves. But in terms of the growth, and I didn't tell you what my roles were at the club. So I have two roles. I'm the football development manager for the club. So I look after our coaches, and we've got round about 203 um, coaches that manage all our teams. So I look after them, and we've got this other committee members that aren't here that look after some of our welfare stuff that we need to have in place. So we make sure everybody's qualified. We make sure the DBSs are in situ. We make sure that we adhere to what the FA wants. So we're a 3-star club now, or We were a charter standard in all money. And then the other things that we've done is we've looked at things like pan disability. So we had to have that to be a three-star club. And our pan disability section of the club is just growing like nobody's business. Um, the girls section is has gone nuts, certainly since the Euros and the success that we've had there. So we've gone from one team to 16 teams. It feels like overnight, but there's a lot of work that's gone in there. Um, Only last night, Matt and myself were at the club for our youth forum. So we've got the youngest on the youth forum is 8, and the oldest is just 17, turning 18. Because we felt as a club, we're all about young people, but we haven't got any young people telling us what to do. So about 2 years ago, we came up with this idea to have a youth forum. We did elections, people put themselves forward, and now that youth forum is a voice for us. They've picked our second strip. They're going to do some consultation for us. They've got ideas around fundraising. So all in all, we've really catered for the demand of not just football, but that sense of belonging that every community should have. And the hub is Leesfield and the clubhouse, but it's far more than that because as I said earlier, we use virtually every blade of grass and plastic in Trafford. So the journey's been long. We've brought a lot of people along with us. We've made some mistakes along the way. I'd like to think we've learnt from some of those mistakes, but you're going to do that when it's like turning a big tanker in a canal. It's not easy to do, but we're getting there with lots of people's help.
That's great. So, is there any advice you'd give? You've mentioned you've learned a lot on the way during the journey. You don't have to go into the mistakes as such, but is there any positives that you can take and anything you could pass on to other clubs in the area or from afar looking to develop their clubs as well? What would the main takeaway be?
Well, I'll pass that on to Matt because I can talk all day. But Matt, being the secretary, he'll know a lot of the good practices that we've got in situ.
Cheers, Jim. I mean, it's a great question to be honest, because we use sort of that methodology in meds. If we're going to do something and we fail, we might as well fail fast and reflect very quickly, and then start and look to what the next venture can be. It's not always about them ventures, but it's listening to people's voices, listening to what matters. So the youth forum Jim alluded to a minute ago that we were with last night, which is a great group, and the subgroups we have that are in and around the club, it's listening to all them voices. So when we want to go and we go on a voyage of doing something within the club, because like I say, I started from playing myself at a young age at a container on a field. We had multiple different fields that we swapped around to a clubhouse now that we've got what facilitates, and it's vibrant when you're there on a Saturday. It's great, and the sort of things we've learned along the way is steady, good people behind you, the governance and so on that obviously we've introduced over the last 5 years has brought a lot of transparency, but also accountability as well. Because obviously at the same time we're a community, and we take money off the community to run the facility. So therefore, it's a paid service. So if we were doing this as a service, if you were paying for a service also like a gym membership, there's an expectancy of how that's got to run. So the safeguarding, all these things around it have got to be in place. And again, it's tweaking them to the environment and the demographic you've got, because obviously there's a lift and shift blueprint for clubs, but then when it comes to different areas, you've got different demographic, you've got different diversity in the areas, you've got to deal with that. So I would say the lessons learned is just being very open to what your use base is, what of what your community is that's going to consume it, whether that be social football, growing into getting into that real arena of being able to be at a standard that you would say is really well, and then into elite, and then obviously pan, your female. There's like you've just got to cater for all. So I would say no lessons, no mistakes, but lots of lessons learned.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it's about we are here for our members. It's about being member driven. So we do pride ourselves on being a listening organisation, and we get feedback through all sorts of routes from our members. And that can be through the boot room that all of our coaches and helpers are on. That can be through our annual AGM meeting or just general correspondence or communication, sometimes just chats on the pitch, and anything that comes through from the members that will make things better for the members and as a whole, we will absolutely listen to and do whatever we can. And I think it's that responsiveness as well that drives the strong sense of community, because people do feel that they are part of something, they're part of the conversation, and they can have an influence on how we deliver for them as a club.
Yep, I think obviously you have a huge responsibility looking after over 1,200 registered players, over 200 volunteers, and to ensure they all have a positive experience in football is clearly quite difficult. But it sounds like putting all the right resource and people in place is certainly helping with that. Speaking of resource and volunteers, I think we've all been eager to talk about this. I'm kind of amazed that it's taken us 15, 20 minutes to get into this. But how did it feel to be recognised for a King's Award for outstanding work by local organisations that benefit their communities? And when did you all first find out about it? If you want to start, Jimmy, and then go to Matt and then Julie, as we've been doing, please.
So that's been a long journey in itself. I was approached by, well, one of my age group parents actually approached us to say, look, Jimmy, my son, he's 18 now, but he joined when he was 5, and he's had an amazing journey, and so have I as a parent. So the ancillary stuff that Matt mentioned earlier is football we do for adults. So along the way, we've made lots of friends, and he was saying he wants to do something for us as a club to recognise the work that had gone on and that helped to shape his son into the young man he is today. So he said if I was happy with it, he wanted to put us forward for the King's Award. So obviously he needed quite a bit of information from us to fill that application in. So that was the start of the journey. So I then mentioned it to our exec, and we devolved it to the management team to look at all the areas that we think we've done well in. And the way that the King's Award works is that you fill the application out, you've got to give the evidence to back up what you're saying. And then if you get shortlisted, they come in and they'll do an interview with you. So we were fortunate enough to get past that first hurdle, and then the deputy Lord Lieutenant came in with one of his staff, and they said that we were going to come. They were going to come to the club for a couple of hours, and they wanted to interview some of the people that we alluded to within our application. So as a management committee, we organised a number of people to come in, from some of the young people that are direct beneficiaries to some of the coaches that have benefited from coach education courses, or referees, male, female. We got our pan disability group to do some videos. So we had a mixed bag of it. Um, and then they ended up staying for about 4 hours, and the presentations that we did, the way that we set it out in a folder, the feedback that we got from them at the time, and Matt and Julie-Ann come in at any time here because they were as much part of it as I was. The feedback we got from them, that this is excellent work, probably the best we've ever seen, and we will be putting you forward. It's not a certainty because you're going to go into the hat with all the other areas, and we'll see what happens. And we had about, was it about 5 months to wait to see whether or not we were successful. Um, and then I got the email through to say that we had in fact um, been successful, and were awarded this prestigious award. And I shared it with the exec. And to say that we were made up is would be an understatement. Um, and I and it's not for me or Matt or Julianne or the exec. It's for the club and for the community, and it's testament to the work that we've been doing over many, many years. And even before I was at the club, the work that was started back in 1977 when we kicked off with one team, to keep going for this many years is amazing. I don't How did it feel for you, Matt, Julianne?
Yeah, I'd agree, Jim. It was very much. I think when we got through the point of the interview, stage, I think the realism of this is a huge award to get because of how stringent it is to get it. You just don't get it for just showing a little bit. You've got to show a level of standard, not just over a certain small period of time, but for a length of time as well. So and to get that, and when it came through, there was a relief feeling in some ways because it was like, wow, we've got there, but excitement and giddiness as well around it on the back of it. But as Jim said before, it's not just for the volunteers that run the club. This is right down to the member level, to the little the little ones that are running around on the pitch for the future. It's all for them, everyone that turns up as well. So it just elevates us in that standard again to show that if you're coming to us, you've got a safe place, you're going to enjoy it, you're going to find a community, you're going to find friends for life. I still speak to footballers that I was knocking about with when I was younger, and I've gained a lot more since through the community. And you just think it just knits everything together to give you this nice accolade to say, wow, we've done it, we've got there. So it was brilliant for my part. I was super proud for the club.
And I think as well for me, I mean, obviously the whole the process around it was very intense, and it was a huge amount of work. There was such a lot of input from so many people. But for me, obviously getting the award was incredible, and we were all so excited. And I think I told everybody I know as quickly as I was able to. Um, but it was also at the interview day, seeing everything showcased that we've done, because we don't often see everything all together at once. Everything's compartmentalized and we do things. So to have everything there together in one hit, and just to be able to say, look, this is who we are, this is what we do. It was so good and so powerful. So the award at the end of it was absolutely the icing on the cake, but it was so good just to be able to show what we do and the impact we have.
I think you were right there, Julie-Ann, in that you, you you don't realize how much actually gets done, do you? Within not just like I say as us, but members, everything. And when the whole lot comes together and you see it on paper, you suddenly think, "Wow, these stats are unreal." And did we really deliver that? And have we done? And then you start to collate that into your hours of voluntary time given, which is what is one and part of the award they look at, and you just think that is some significant time spent for the community and within the community. So it's great. It was absolutely brilliant to see when he articulated out like it did. Bro.
Yeah, I mean, it's testament to the hard work, and it's really lovely to see how happy I can see that, and obviously we can hear that. So obviously we're really pretty pleased and pass on our congratulations. It was received quite well on social media as well, of what I've seen. But obviously, I appreciate it is early days. Has it opened up any new opportunities and any potential areas of growth, or is that kind of in the works right now for you guys?
The trouble is, we have had lots more inquiries, but we're bursting at the seams, and there's got to come a point where sometimes you have to consolidate rather than keep growing, because what happens is that you dilute what you've got. So as an exec, we're looking at how we improve what we've got before we stretch any further. We're desperate for new facilities, and I'm not saying that having the King's Award has put us ahead of anybody else, but it certainly helps when you're knocking on doors for fundraising, for sponsorship, for that sort of thing. So, you know, and I know you know this, but having the King's Award is like an MBE for a club. So what we're already demonstrating is the standards are quite high here, and if we're supported by, and we're asking Manchester FA to help us out, and they've said yes. We're asking the council to help us out, and we're also asking Football Foundation to help us out. So we do need our own facilities so that we can be the masters of our own destiny before we think about expanding any further. So 16 girls teams is nuts, and you know, if you came down to one of our training sessions on Flixton Girls' School's AstroTurf. It's a 99 AstroTurf pitch, and you can't see the green of the plastic for the number of children that we've got on. Um, there is a tipping point where you think we're losing the quality, and we don't. The last thing we want to do is grow for the sake of growing. There's enough of us to know and have that experience to say, let's just pause it for the time being, despite the success and the social media frenzy that there was when we got the award. But I think we've got it because of the quality, not because of the volume. So that's my take on it. Mark, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I'd agree, Jim, that we don't lose the essence of what we're about and dilute, because that's with the growth and the amount of interest it has brought, because it has significantly increased a bit of interest in the area, because like anything does, yeah, you get a nice recommendation for a Michelin star restaurant in the area or something like that, people are going to go to it naturally because they're going to go and see what it feels about and everything. And that's the same from a club perspective. Um, we, like Jim says, we are very bursting at the seams, but the it's a nice problem to have, rather than being a problem where you're trying to get people across that sort of over the pathway onto the field. And it's nice that I think what I have seen more on, and since the award, is probably more volunteers stepping forward to again step over the line from being a parent into it, because they're seeing that obviously that structure's there and everything, and they believe in that a little bit. Maybe they feel a bit more confident to join something like that, because they feel there's a nice pathway for them to learn from parent through to coach. Our youth forum lead, who's just took over as coaching, and now she's coming to doing that, and it just opens doors, I think, from the back of it. So lots of positives. But maybe in 12 months, ask us that question again where we are, and we might be able to say a little bit more on that one. But from my perspective, I would agree that we just don't dilute what we've been successful at the moment, really.
As you mentioned, I think the impact will be easier to measure in 12 months' time, in 2, 3, 4 years, etc. However, alongside your recent honour, the club does have a rich history of picking up numerous local awards. So I know that includes 4 of our Club of the Year awards. There's 2 Trafford MVC Sports Club of the Year awards. How important is it to be recognised as well as nationally, but in the local area? And does this impact the recruitment of volunteers? You mentioned obviously parents stepping up. Is there anyone that comes directly to you off the back of more local awards too?
So yeah, I mean, it's great. I mean, obviously from the awards element again, that just shows stature of what we're doing, and it's nice to get the accolades to say things are being done and recognised. Um, I think it opens the door more to opportunities and stuff that we're seeing in relation to the awards we've got, is more outside entities coming to approach us. So, like for instance, we've got UCFB that's in Manchester, and we ask for placements for coaches and elements like that, where we can facilitate out pieces. We get lots of inquiries about coaches that are moving to the area and want to get involved as well. Some of these have children and don't. So from a resource perspective, it does help to get that from a national awareness with our groundskeeper and Arnie Ross, who won that recently, which was brilliant. We've had Rachel Robinson over the years that won the national award. I was great to get the local award in 2019 myself, and we've had multiple club awards and everything, and youth awards for youth coaches, Pan Disability Coach of the Year with George Frith over the years as well. It's great, but it's across all them levels, which is, I think, the most impactful ones we've had has probably been the George one, to be honest, because that's got the youth to think, I've got a pathway in here to do something. And then they see things like, if I do this I want to do it anyway, but it's going to help me for university, it's going to help me for jobs. You start to then go away from football into the person, which is what football's all about anyway. But it starts to grow the individuals for life, and that's the biggest reward I see that comes from the accolades and the things like we've got from FA through to the King's Award and so on. It's very much about how that develops the people for future life, not necessarily just within football. So it's great aspect, really.
Yeah. So you mentioned actually a lot of the volunteers I've got listed down as winning personal accolades as well. I guess this is more towards yourself, Matt and Julie. But what is it like to volunteer at AFC Urmston Meds, and what tools are you given to ensure that you do succeed? And I guess from your roles as well, as higher up in the organisation, how do you ensure that you recognise their contribution as well? Obviously, you've probably both been on both sides of the fence, so I think it'd be good to get a perspective from both of them sides, please.
I guess it depends on the role you're taking as to what's required. Some roles, before you can um, start with the role, you are required to undertake training, accreditation, whatever it might be. So we have a really robust process in place to make sure that everything like that has to happen does happen in good time. Um, you get access to training as needed. You get thrown into the support network, which is a community of football crazy people who are committed to Medicide, to the game, to the people that are part of that. So you learn it's one of the things I really enjoyed when I've joined various networks was just the chats, the sharing of knowledge and experience, the support that was there. Um, and you never really feel on your own with it. So whatever you need is available from somebody. Somebody has been in that situation at some point in the past. And we've got the strong club sec team, strong welfare team that are there to make sure that everyone feels equipped to deliver what they need to deliver.
I suppose from my part, Matt, was um, you get lifelong friendships that are coming out of some of this, which help you get massive support. So and everyone within the group are very socially active outside that outside of Medicide as well, and it is a huge amount of work that you have to give in your voluntary time. So you finish work and then you're on calls and you're necessarily dealing with maybe some things that have materialized from the weekends or bits like that. And it's always something going on which keeps you busy, but it's interesting as well at the same time. But I think it's the mentor side as well for me on the back of it. I was fortunate for which I would have said definitely got me towards where my award was in 2019 was mentor from Jimmy from a coaching point and understanding and using the people that have been there around it for a long time and as a sponge to get that knowledge off them, because if you can transport that knowledge across each other in it, then we'll always be successful because it's just a vessel of its own. So it's all that mentorship as well and support to do it. I mean, I have some people, some of the players in the team, you like me football, dad, and things like that, because it, you just get a unique relationship with lots of people from different levels. So that's what I've seen with it. It's been really good.
Yeah, that's great. It's really good to hear both of your insight. Just moving on, I think we've mentioned a little bit about the women and girls game. Um, we've had recent numbers that there are more than 25,000 girls playing football across Greater Manchester, with Manchester and Trafford actually seeing the greatest rise in competitive play. How important is it that you've offered that provision for girls to play football? I know we have mentioned that you have 16 teams. But is this a particular area and project that you have seen growth the most across the club in the last few years?
So actively as a committee, management committee, we wanted to grow the girls' game. If I'm honest with you, it would help to attract funds. I know that was a lot of money was earmarked towards the women and girls game. Um, but from a personal point of view, our one of our girls' team was going to fold. I think they were under 16s or under 17s, and that would have been a crime for them to fold. So I volunteered to go and support them, and I have to tell you, I thought I knew football, but I learned a lot more about football managing a group of girls and taking them for training sessions. And just when you think you can't learn any more, they flipping surprise me. Um, and I have to say, it's probably one of the best experiences I've had as a coach. And I've coached men, uh, kids. Um, yeah, really good. And almost it complemented everything that we were doing in the club to see that growth. And we had so many willing volunteers, so many parents that wanted to come forward and offer their help to support that growth in the game. But as I was saying earlier, it's so important that we don't stretch it too far and we end up spoiling the quality because we're struggling now for places for everyone to train and play matches. Um, Matt, do you want to finish that off?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the growth's been great. We did our big day out as well, which we aligned in with the National FA for that, which were one of, I believe, two flagship clubs that hosted that in the day, one down in the London boroughs and ourselves up in the northwest. And it was brilliant. The day was brilliant. The weather wasn't brilliant, but the day was great. So, getting that big screen out, growing that sort of awareness in and around it, where we were lucky to get some, national exposure on this through sort of TV as well, which was great. Where we got some snippets and we managed to make that, the tea time TV element and be able to really push that women's side of the game as well and that female sort of section on it. But then the growth from that came bigger because I think the day helped us to show the inclusiveness of the club. So it showed that this isn't just for young boys and growing gentlemen into older ages and so on. This is a sport for all. Because it wasn't just from that as well. We've seen the pan disability numbers grow as well off the back of these type of events. So we always seem to get a nice growth off any sort of external facing event we do, which is great. But yeah, it's been brilliant to see that the women's part of the game growing massively more, and even from the pro level, the exposure and everything else on there. We were fortunate enough to get a personalised signed shirt from Ella Toom recently, which is all the players and members of the club love it. When they're walking in, they stop, they talk, they look at it. It's a growing area that is great to be part of because it's very fast paced, the growth on it. So it's great to just ride that wave with it and keep going with it.
That's great. And do you have anything to add on this, Julie?
No, I don't. I mean, I helped out on the day doing various bits and pieces, and it was just a wonderful day. People that had never even thought about coming to Meadowside before turned up. So as well as it being a great day for football, for women and girls football, it was also a great day for the community. And the fact that we were selected to do that, I think just sort of solidifies the greatness of the club. We were very, very honoured to do it, and I think we did it really well.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously, I think a lot of the mentions as well have been around young people. Um, it seems to be quite prevalent to your future strategy moving forward. How important is it that you get them involved, and how can they develop you and the club as well moving forward?
It's the most important bit, which is why we've got a youth forum in place. Our club is designed for mainly for young people, and for a long time we were deciding what we did for young people without them having a voice. So we've given them a voice now, and they're playing an active role in helping to shape, as you rightly said, the strategy for the next 5, 10, 15 years. And they're the future. So one of the things that we do every year, and which is why we've got the numbers, is we start off at under fours, fives. And we make sure that that age group's looked after, because that age group, if they stay with us, they move forward with us, and we'll know that the club's healthy. The minute them numbers drop, we'll know that we're going to have some problems in a few years' time. So their voice, particularly around um, the way that we look, the kit, they've designed the badge. We've redesigned the badge recently. One of our younger players designed that. The youth forum picked our new away kit, which is purple, which coincidentally is the color of the shirt that we got for the King's Award. Um, it is great, and they just give you a little bit more of energy to want. So Matt and I both came home tired from work yesterday, absolutely shattered. But 10 minutes in that group, uh, we were buzzing, and whatever they were drinking or eating, I want some of that. But yeah, it's important for us as an exec to listen to that voice of young people and to make sure it's recognised. And sometimes you listen, but you don't hear. We're going to make sure that we hear everything that they have to say.
Yeah, and I think with that, Jim, that listening to that voice is important because if we were to present football as I knew it well at 7 years of age, it's drastically different. It is so different the modern day football to what the older football was, and you get a lot of the generation who go, oh, when we used to play football this, when we used to play football that, but you see the impacts of media, everything else in these youth now, and that's what's growing it. And you think the kids are watching TikToks, things like this, and everything to learn skills, and they're looking at YouTubes and freestylers, and then they look at the professionals to see what they're doing. And they try and emulate on the pitch, and when you watch it and you go through it, it's just very rewarding to sit and watch. I mean, I referee as well at weekends, so I referee from the younger age groups through, and just when you're on the pitch and they're running around and somebody say, like, "Oh, I've just done a Ronaldo move," and you just think it's great. It's out, and it's a breath of fresh air. To be honest, it does help you sort of bring yourself back into the realism of it a little bit about what you're delivering, because sometimes it can get lost. But when you bring that back into that innocence point of the youth, the younger side of it, it makes it so much fun to be able to do what we do. Because sometimes it can be a little bit daunting and a little bit, you can come off sometimes frustrated in some of the things that we're trying to do, and we can't get that pace or get that investment. But then it puts it back to why you do it completely by just refereeing for an hour or doing a training session with the younger ones. It just brings it all back in, especially the pan disability sessions. They're just, you walk back from them absolutely buzzing. So it's great, really. The impact's huge.
Yeah, it does. I agree. Most of the people involved have got jobs, often responsible, busy jobs, and at the beginning of whatever it is you're doing, you're like, oh, you've got to drag yourself. But at the end of it, you feel so energized because it's just the energy, the excitement, the youth that just spreads amongst whoever's in the environment. It's such a good thing to do. And I think sometimes, again, that's, we've all got busy jobs, busy lives. Sometimes it's nice to do something that's just so different to everything else that you might do, in your normal day-to-day life. So it's great for the club, it's great for the kids and everyone else, but I think it's good for us, it's good for the soul as well. It just helps you to reboot every now and again.
It's really good to hear, and again, really nice and refreshing to hear the passion that comes through from you guys. I do have a final few questions just around the future of the club. Obviously we've mentioned youth, but what does the future hold and what plans you have to continue your journey and impact? I know you've mentioned that you're seeking to kind of develop facilities. Is there any other plans moving forward?
Well, I don't think I'll be breaking any secrets if we said, obviously, that there's the new facility that we want in terms of an AstroTurf, but we want to develop the clubhouse so that it doesn't sit there all week closed. We want to open it up and let young people come in, and they've got some great ideas of how they want to develop that. I think coming on to Julie-Ann's area of work, the standards have got to be maintained. We've got to build on that. We want the club to be the hub for them to develop as human beings. We don't, football's incidental, as I said earlier. Some of the things that we do, Matt, from the age of 14, we pay for them to do the referees courses. And the number of young people from our club who are getting paid for refereeing games is crazy. Some of the others, we'll put them through the Playmaker Award and the Level 1 to get them to come and do some coaching for us on a voluntary basis. Others, I mean, we talked about the pan disability. We've got some of our children coming down to do the Duke of Edinburgh's award time with our pan disability. We've got volunteers from the club that give up the time. They've got no connections to pan disability other than they want to volunteer the time, and their kids come along. So it's quite infectious what we're creating here, and we just want more of that. So not necessarily expand as a club. We don't want to be a place where we've got 100 teams but nowhere for them to train and the experience is poor. I'd rather we drop down to 70 teams and had a better experience when they came than expand beyond our means. So, I mean, Trafford is full of young people that want to play football. Trafford FC, one of our neighbours and good partners, they're doing some great work. And the closer we work, because obviously a semi-professional club, but there's some overlap with us, and some of our players go to them, and some of their players come to us. We just want to make sure that wherever they go, they have a good experience. So we're not precious, we don't wrap our arms around our young people. we're happy for anybody to leave. They're always welcome to come back, and vice versa. That's how it works the other way as well. And sometimes you're scrapping for that one bit of area where you can train, and you shouldn't be that shouldn't happen. And I know we're having the Manchester FA are having discussions with Trafford Council because we are deficient of a number of the plastic pitches nationally. Based on our population, we're about 7 or 8 full size astroturfs down. So hopefully we can readdress that balance, and there may be some more work that needs to be done around Trafford and Urmston and Davyhulme where we operate that will help clubs like us to be able to cater for the thirst, the hunger that young people have got. Because the last thing that any of us want to do is turn people away. And it 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 really hurts me when I hear we've got a waiting list because why? Why we got wait well, we've got a waiting list because the experience won't be good when they come. So that's the only negative out of everything that we've talked about today, is that sometimes we have to say we just can't because either we haven't got enough coaches, so our ratios won't be right, or we just physically can't fit them on the training area that they've been allocated. Matt, have I missed anything off there or Julianne?
No, I, I'd agree. It's that wider cohesion, isn't it, across there's multiple grassroots clubs within the area, and we're fortunate to say that all of them are a safe haven to be in, and would recommend any to anybody in the area on the back of it because that's how closely we work. So it's about if we don't want people sat on waiting lists like Jimmy says, which is which is the bad side of some of the things that happen when you get awards and things like that. Lots of people want to come and join you and you can't handle them in. But how can we steer them and pathway into other areas that are just as suitable and just as efficient in terms of what they're doing, but maybe not, are just round the corner and people might not know about them. And it's growing them partnerships in the area. And then that wider community piece with strategy moving forward is obviously there's multiple different sports played in and around Urmston, and how maybe we can look to help them, so our facilities enable them to do a little bit more in the future, maybe as well. In times we're not using our facilities, and we have scout groups that come and do their annual tournaments. We have all sorts of things that come and help in and on that wider piece. So how do we do that and make that more inclusive and available to everybody as well? Because we're in the industry, I know sometimes space is a premium and it can cost quite a lot to rent spaces out. So how do we help these community ventures to grow, these voluntary sectors to grow that are in and around the community as well? So there's lots of great ideas that we're running and looking at. It's aligning them in and again timing them at the right time to do it. But you're looking at the future's bright for Urmston Meadowside, looking at where we are, and I can only see it getting bigger and better. Not necessarily from numbers, but more from stature, maybe in terms of what we're delivering to the wider community.
That's great. Just kind of as a closing point, is there any current roles that anyone can get involved in? Is there any sort of vacancies? I know we've mentioned a waiting list, but is there anything available for anyone listening that would like to come and kind of get involved with the club?
Do you want to come and join us, Matt? I'm sure we'll find something for you. Um, there's always space for any volunteer at Urmston Meadowside there. The roles don't need to be creative for people that want to get involved. It's their precious time. If they can put something into the club to do, I'm sure there's something they can help pick up, alleviate, enhance, improve. These we would never turn any volunteers down about coming joining us. You don't have to have a place on the structure for them. We would certainly take anybody on, being honest, and probably out there for anyone listening is come and join us. Come and get involved. It's brilliant. Just come and join us.
It's been great to talk to you all about AFC Urmston Meadowside. I'm sure a lot of people can take a lot of pointers away from this podcast. Hearing from a club of your size and how you guys run it, it really is testament, and I think the passion from all three of you comes through. It's been great to have you all on. Thank you for joining us, Jimmy, firstly.
No, you're welcome. Thank you for your time and your patience. What I would say is, if there is an appeal and for someone to come and join us, Arnie Ross, who Matt mentioned earlier, won the national award. He's a lone ranger, and he virtually keeps the club running on his own. But he has had a little bit of ill health lately, and we are desperate to get some help for him. So if there's somebody out there that likes to sit on mower, likes to mark lines out, just muck in and get involved, they're more than welcome. We'd welcome them with open arms. That's not to say we haven't got people that help iron it out. We have, but not nearly enough. But thank you for your time. Really appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you for joining us as well, Matt. It's been really good to hear kind of your journey from, playing as a child all the way until your role as club sec now. So really appreciate your thoughts.
Oh, thank you for the invite. It's been great. Thank you.
And finally, thank you, Julie-Ann. It's been really good to hear around compliance and keeping the club running. I can see that you're very important to these two, and the club in general. So thank you for coming on as well. It's really appreciated.
Thank you, Matt. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Greater Manchester Football Podcast. We will be back again, continuing to hear what makes football and Manchester the best combination. See you soon for episode 3.